Hello, and welcome to Lesson 17 of Reawaken the Dream, a course for the writer mom or anyone who has to divide their writing across fragments of time. This is the class where we are working on a very practical tool, the character profile tool that will give us the power of living characters. We're on our 12th character trait already, so if you're just tuning in, well, you probably want to find lesson 1. There's a playlist that has all the lessons. But if you're ready for lesson 17, let's get going. We'll begin, as always, with a very brief review of last week's lesson. Last week, we talked about kindness, and we contrasted kindness with courtesy. One of the key things that we said about courtesy is that courtesy can be extended in general to everyone that we meet, whereas kindness is specific and notices someone and notices their specific needs. Likewise, with courtesy, the animal model had to do with the alpha animal in the pack making sure that all those other animals stayed submissive to him, whereas the animal model for kindness was when one of those animals decided to make a challenge. Very pointed, very specific. The lost states of kindness are unkindness all the way to cruelty. The lost state, any unkindness is going to show our character in a very bad light. If that kindness is in the pinnacle position, it's probably an arch villain. If the kindness is in a wing position, it's an ordinary villain. If kindness is in the rudder position, I'm sad to say that's probably a villain in training, a junior villain. Likewise, the victory states of kindness are very specific and very directed. And the interesting thing about kindness compared to courtesy, kindness has a cost. Even if that cost is just bending down to pick up something for someone who's dropped it. You can be courteous without really going out of your way, but kindness affects a specific person, and it takes giving of yourself. So that was our empathy trait, kindness. Today, we get our third balance trait. Are you ready? Our trait for this week is moderation. Whoa, how's that for boring? Well, the flip side of moderation covers a whole lot of stuff. Moderation, we'll see. Watch the scenarios. Marlena had been very faithful to her diet because there was a big wedding coming up, her cousin's wedding, and she was a bridesmaid. When they'd been out shopping for dresses, Marlena couldn't really get the dress zipped up. She was too embarrassed to ask them to go get her the next size larger, so she just held her breath and somehow managed to get it zipped up and came home with the dress. But ever since, she'd been having nightmares of the dress, the zipper popping loose at the wedding. And so it had really motivated her to just be perfect with her diet. So here was the big day, and all the bridesmaids were gathered, and they were all changing out of their street clothes into their beautiful gowns. Marlena held her breath, but wait, the zipper zipped right up smoothly, and she had wiggle room to spare. She was so happy. Now she could give her full attention to the bride. The wedding went off beautifully, and the reception was quite delightful. But when it came time to go to the buffet table, and the whole table got up to go get in line, Marlena didn't want to do it. She didn't want to eat anything. And then she decided she'd better, because it was going to be a little weird and embarrassing to be the only one left behind at her table. So she got in line, but she was afraid to put anything on her plate. She still had visions of the zipper popping open of her dress. Moderation. In the meantime, Martin couldn't take his eyes off the bride. They'd actually dated a number of years ago, but Martin was stupid, and he let another woman catch his eye. He thought she was prettier, and he just kind of lost interest in the bride. But now he was kind of chiding himself that she just looked absolutely ravishing. He really wanted to dance with her, and after he'd had a couple of drinks, he got up his courage and he asked her for a dance. And he actually got to dance with her briefly. But just as he was becoming intoxicated with her perfume, the groomsman cut in. Well, he'd had a couple more drinks, and now he was going to make another try for a dance with the bride. He headed for the dance floor, but there was the groomsman again, standing straight in his path. He grabbed him by the elbow and said, "Let's go outside and get some air." Moderation. Rick had another day that he was skipping school. He used the same method he used the previous time. Stood around waving at his mom at the school bus stop, and when the bus pulled up and blocked him from the view of his mom, he scooted behind a bush so that she wouldn't notice that when the bus pulled away, he wasn't on the bus. Well, he did it again today. And he was just so excited. I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. I don't have to be at that stupid school. Yay, yay, yay. So he decided to go heading off about 7 blocks over to the busy street that kind of bordered on his neighborhood, and a few more blocks down to a convenience store. Well, he didn't go inside. He went around the back. And he took out a pack of cigarettes. It was mostly full. The last time, he'd found some guy who'd gone and bought them for him. All he had to do was give the guy twice what the pack of cigarettes really cost, and he got a pack of cigarettes. This time he was hoping he'd do a little bit better smoking it. He lit one up. Didn't get dizzy. Ooh, this is kind of working. Took about 4 puffs, and then it hit him. Pounding headache. Oh, he just leaned against the building and kind of slumped down with his head in his hands. His head was just pounding, and now he was feeling dizzy. The guy came over to him. He didn't have his eyes open. The guy said, "Are you okay? Like, man, are you okay?" He looked up, and it was that same guy who bought him the cigarettes. He said, yeah, I'm okay. And the guy said, hey, why are you sitting there? Why don't you come over to my house? We could have some fun. Rick wasn't sure, well, what kind of fun? Well, for one thing, I got something better to smoke than those things. Well, Rick didn't know what to do. It was his chance to be really super cool, but his head was really aching, and now his stomach was aching too. All of a sudden, he didn't want to be there at all. He was wishing was back at school and having his normal life. He said, no. He got up, grabbed his backpack, and headed home. Moderation. Okay. You're going to tell me it's a cliche. Okay. I know it's a cliche, but it's true. Susan loved kitten videos. She could watch them by the hour. They were just so cute. She begged her mom for a kitten so many times, and her mom had said no probably 100 times. But Susan could always watch the kitten videos, and she just loved them. But if school was going to be starting up soon, and Susan realized that she'd wasted most of her summer vacation staring at her screen. So she decided that she was going to have to set some bounds on the kitten videos. She promised herself that Monday through Friday, she'd give herself 15 minutes to watch kitten videos after she finished her homework. And on Saturday and Sunday, she'd give herself 30 minutes to watch kitten videos after dinner. And just to make sure her plan was solidly in place, she started it up 2 weeks before the start of school. Moderation. Moderation seems almost namby-pamby. It's like, what are we talking? Blasville here? Blah? Well, not when you really look into it. The interesting thing about moderation is moderation requires that the person exercising it be in a safe state. If that person is in a state of arousal due to danger, a sense of danger, the behavior can be really chaotic. Whereas if the person senses mortal danger, the behavior can be extremely rigid. In neither of those cases do you really even get to have moderation come into play. So moderation is touchy. But what basically is moderation? Moderation is the ultimate balance trait. Moderation is being moderate in pleasures, moderate in work, moderate in time spent with others and with your friends, moderate in time spent alone. A balance in the amount of drive and the amount of rest. Moderation is the ultimate balance trait, the poster child of balance traits, if you will. So let's take a look at it as we usually look at things. The triad of emotions. So what is the struggle for balance? The struggle for balance is the struggle to put bounds on things that you like, things that give you pleasure, like Susan putting bounds on the number of kitten videos that she's willing to watch. The animal model doesn't have that side of doing things in moderation. Animals just naturally do things the way animals do them. There's really no such thing as doing them, setting limits. But as we said, moderation is a balance character trait. And therefore, there's two ways to lose. There's two loss states. One is the loss state of going overboard, and the other is the loss state of being unwilling to trust yourself with reasonable pleasures, such as Marlena when she couldn't enjoy the food at the buffet because she still had this idea in her mind that her dress would pop. So we do have an animal model for the loss state of moderation when it's over tightness. And that is, sad to say, that is the animal that is so frightened that it cannot eat. Remember, we said at the start that for moderation to take place, you have to be in a safe state. So the animal, this is a poor little dog, he just got in the shelter and he's still too frightened to even to touch his full bowl of food. He's just cowering. And that's one of the animal models. But surprise, moderation has two animal models. Moderation is the first character trait we've studied that has a whole animal model for victory. And that is the pack animal relaxing amongst its pack mates or being at play with its pack mates. A victory, a rare victory animal model. So when you have a victory, the victory state is the ability to say yes appropriately and no appropriately. It's the ability to say, thank you, I'd love some. No, thank you, I've had enough. The loss state is on the immoderate side, is going overboard. And this is where I'm not going to go into any detail on the possible lost states of moderation. Good grief. Just pick up any modern novel. It will be chock full of loss upon loss upon loss upon loss of moderation. You don't need me to give you examples. But what is lost in the lost state of moderation? What's lost is a sense of human dignity, the sense of self-respect. There's an old saw that I remember as a kid. I never eat cookies because they have yeast, and one little bite turns a man to a beast. Can you imagine a sadder disgrace than a man in the gutter with crumbs on his face? Sounds like me and potato chips. But it's that loss of dignity. The loss of, you didn't think anyone saw you raid the potato chip bowl at the party? Well, what are all the potato chip crumbs that you didn't notice you were walking around wearing? So that's what's lost with the lost state of dignity. And what's lost on the restrictive side of moderation, you lose the joy, you lose the fun, you lose the reasonable pleasures that should be a part of normal life. So moderation has a lot more power in your story than the word itself might indicate. And let's take a look a little bit more of that. Let's take a look at the modifiers of moderation. We already said moderation was in the balance group, along with orderliness and self-control. So therefore, it shares two modifiers, scale and agency, just as all traits in the balance group have scale and agency. The scale, we said the loss was the loss of dignity, and the scale of the loss is how much dignity has been lost. To what point has the character crumbled? And there are a lot of possibilities. Sad to say, you only need to drive to the downtown area of any city of modest size, and you're going to see the loss of dignity in a very, very sad way. What's the scale on the victory side? Well, take a look at it. We say the scale has to do with what's at stake, and you can easily see that if there's a great loss of dignity, that's a great scale. But victory is when you achieve the balance. When you achieve getting the moderation at least as an anchor trait, if not as a base trait. So if you have something in perfect balance, how do you have a scale at all? And the answer is that it's very situational. That means that almost anything can hang in the balance. Remember, we saw that with orderliness, where we had the teen that does or does not hang up the key that to the double-sided deadbolt and the coffee maker that looked like it was about to burst into flames. Perfectly balanced. But he hangs up the key and he averts what could be an enormous tragedy. Well, that's always going to be true in the victory states of your balance groups. Based on the situation, the scale can be enormous over a seemingly trivial decision to choose for balance, choose for moderation, or to let everything go. Agency is the other modifier, and we've already seen many times, well, twice before, that the factors of agency are circumstances beyond the character's control. Sometimes events happen and the character just cannot behave in a moderate manner. There's a massive emergency at work and he's got to work all night. Nothing moderate about that, but the circumstances are beyond his control, and by golly, the emergency warranted it. Sometimes the agency is hampered by simply a situation of being overwhelmed. Now, Rick got himself into a situation behind the convenience store. Fortunately, he was saved by a horrible headache. But if he were still in his state, if that cigarette went down smoothly and he was starting to actually be a smoker, maybe he'd have been enticed into whatever that guy had in mind for him. We don't know where that would have gone, might have gone, but he might have been overwhelmed with his not having the power to resist that pull. And so that's always a factor in agency. And the other factor in agency is limiting self-beliefs, which always come into it, where our character might say, for example, I want to control my drinking, but there's nothing I can do. I've tried 20 times to quit smoking, and I've never quit smoking. Is it Monday? I must be on a diet. How can I ever achieve a diet? I have never done it before. Limiting self-beliefs can also interfere with the agency. So there's a lot to play with in our storylines here. So since we're talking about playing with our storylines, let's take a look at what we're going to cover in the character profile tool today. Lots of fun today. The character profile tool, we're going to start off by talking about the advice the gurus give you. And sad to say, who am I? But I'm telling you because it's the truth. The advice the gurus give you, if you are a writer mom, you might be getting advice that's very bad, or in any case, no matter what kind of writer you are, you're getting advice that's very incomplete. So let's just talk through the bad first. How many gurus tell you that if you don't have at least 2 hours straight, no interruptions, no cell phone, nobody bothering you, if you don't have 2 hours a day to give to your writing, you're never going to make it? Stephen King, I saw a quote from Stephen King that went so far as to say, if you don't have 4 to 6 hours a day, you can give it up. Well, to me, that's very bad advice, because that's the advice that says, throw it away. It's your dream. You've always wanted to be a writer. Throw it away. How horrible. That's horrible. I will forgive them because they don't know what I teach in this course. They don't have the full story. So let's take a look at the advice that gurus give you that needs a little more fleshing out. It's good as far as it goes, but it needs some help. Now, I've told you from the very get-go that I don't teach how to write. The gurus do that. And one of the things that most of the gurus will talk about are the plot points of a story. The twists and turns and the ups and the downs and how the whole thing is finally resolved. And typically, the incomplete story is that these are events that happen. Ba-da, character's moving along, he's on a trajectory, event, and he has to take a change. Event. Well, that's nice, but unless you're at the level of a comic book, you need more than just an outside event that comes in and whaps your characters. What you need is emotion and drama and fulfillment. And that does not come from external events. That comes from the decisions made at the rudder trait level. So let's talk about an event that's just about as out of the blue as you can get. A dragon shows up. Okay, it's early in the story. The character was on his way and the dragon shows up. So, what's he going to do? Well, it's early in the story, So he's probably just going to run away. Well, that's your event. The dragon shows up and he runs away. Oh boy, that packed an emotional punch, didn't it? Scary, the dragon. And he ran away. Not much involvement in it. But if we say, how did he get away from the dragon? Ah, he had circumspection as a rudder trait. He recognized that what he needed to do was look around. He could not let himself go into the rigidity of panic, mortal danger rigidity. He couldn't freeze. He had to force himself to be calm and do his circumspection. And so now you're showing him doing his circumspection. This way is blocked. That way looks good. Oh no, the cliff just crumbled down. This way doesn't work. Finally, I might get out that way. It's highly dangerous. I'm going to try for it, and it's a big struggle, and he just barely makes it. Could only have found that one escape path with his great circumspection. Okay. So that is the thing that builds drama. Of course, you also have to show early on that your character is likable so that the readers won't say, good, I hope the dragon eats him. So that's part of your work back here. And you'll find that if each of these plot points, you plot what's going on in the character profile diagram, you not only get drama in your story, you know what you have to build into your story leading up to it so that it's fully satisfying. Now, the dragon wasn't killed, so let's assume that our hero is going to have to meet him again right here. And if he bests the dragon now is blocking the way to the castle of the arch-villain. And if he bests the dragon, he can go tackle the arch-villain. So, now, this time he's got to fight the dragon. And he's got to be prepared to fight the arch-villain. So, what do we have to do here? He wasn't prepared to fight the dragon before. Now he's prepared to fight the dragon. Now you know you have to build into your story what skills did he need to get to be able to best the dragon this time. You have to show him acquiring those skills. What bravery did he have to achieve? You better show him being brave in a number of challenging situations leading up to it. And something really interesting, if he's going to best the villain, if it's going to be really, really, really satisfying, it's going to have to require that he utilize one of his wing traits. One of those wing traits has to have been brought down to the rudder level as a direct result of his battle with the dragon. So therefore, by knowing what his wing traits are, you're going to know how did he beat the dragon? Did he outwit the dragon? Did he outpower the dragon? What was the mechanism? And what character trait did he have to use? Because to do the dragon, he's going to have to reach. Those wing traits are barely accessible, and it's going to take a lot of effort. And when he reaches that wing trait and succeeds in taking down the dragon, boom, it's a rudder trait now, and he can run in and face the arch-villain of the story and take the arch-villain down. So you see, it's very nice to say, do this, then this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. But where does your emotion get into play? Oh, don't the girls have advice for that? Let me tell you what they tell you to do. Okay, no problem. They don't know about placing emotion consciously coming out of your intellect. No, they tell you that put your work aside, let it go cold. Not just a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks. Who knows? If you really got attached to it, maybe a couple of months. Then come back to your work and then read it as though it were written by a stranger. And then you can say, see, did it have emotions? No? Okay, tear it up and start over. Ta-da! Emotions. 3 tries and it didn't work? Oh well, you're never going to be a writer, are you? More bad advice. But you guys are lucky. You're right here in the course for Writer Moms. I'm Kathleen Sprocklin, caregiver to the Writer Moms. So get writing. I'm still waiting for that shelf full of books that you guys have written. I've got 3 on my shelf, and I can't wait to add yours. See you next week. Bye-bye.